Whatever your personal limits are, if you push them in the outdoors, you will likely experience fear. Today, we're talking about some techniques to help manage that fear. Hello there, I'm Jason. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are doing some videos on the mental side of climbing, backpacking, wilderness camping, really any adventure in the outdoors. And today, we're talking about fear. I don't really believe that the goal is to not experience fear. Frankly, fear is important for self-preservation, but I do think we can always manage fear better so that it turns us around only when we should turn around and doesn't do so when maybe we can still accomplish our goals.
Good work, Jason.
I first started thinking about performance and fear when I was a golf professional. Right out of college, I spent a few years trying to make it as a touring pro. I was never quite good enough to make it to the big tours. I knocked around some of the mini tours in the Western United States. Working with a sports psychologist, he told me the key to the performance mindset was being fully present. For any shot, he described the ideal mental state as being, imagine someone just dropped the ball where it is and challenged you to hit the best possible shot from there. In essence, I was to divorce myself from the history of the shot that put the ball there and just focus on the current challenge. But that's not fear. Fear arrives because of the stakes. Mini tour prize money was so low, it wasn't unusual for me to need to perform at a certain level in order to make enough money to even make my rent payment or afford my food budget. Taking that to the outdoors, the consequences can be even higher, with severe bodily injury or even death within the realm of possibilities. But modifications of the techniques I use to manage fear while golfing still apply. Just like a golfer plays a practice round and rehearses pressure-packed shots, an outdoors adventurer can provide themselves a version of that same exposure therapy. A classic example of this is leader fall training. This is when you intentionally come off a vertical wall, taking longer and longer falls so that you get used to the sensations. You tend to then stop associating falling with only severe and bad outcomes. At a macro level, you can do this through progressions. Basically, I get used to an environment and then change only one major thing about the environment so that I'm not overwhelmed by too many things that are unfamiliar to me. My macro mountaineering progression, for example, began with my climbing in good, warm weather in Colorado. I then moved to winter and variable condition climbing. Then it was off to glaciated peaks and the added element of crevasse danger. Then I added in higher altitude. From there, it was truly big, multi-week expeditions and all of the little survival elements that come into play with that. Finally, I was willing to take on an attempt at a high-altitude first descent, where by definition, the mountain's nuances and vagaries are unknown. So I think about using pre-exposure as a way to get rid of some of the unfamiliarities, and that way help manage my fear. But there will inevitably be times where I simply get into a situation that feels dangerous. When I'm in a moment of fear, like that, I try to follow a mental pattern to bring me back to good performance. I'm going to need that performance to either keep going, if that's my decision, or to get me out of there. But either way, I'm going to need to be able to perform well. The first thing I do is name the fear. This is quite literally telling myself, I'm feeling fear. Naming it moves it from my unconscious reptilian brain into my conscious brain, where there is a possibility for me to manage it. Also, I don't say I am afraid. I am afraid is a statement about me. I am something. I'm feeling fear is about the fear. It's something that's happening to me. There's less judgment in that statement. I then place the fear in my body. I notice if my legs are shaking, or my breathing feels tight, or my stomach is knotted up. This helps me impassively observe the fear. Again, moving away from judgment, and any thought I could have is like, I shouldn't be afraid here. I then begin to experiment with the fear.
I'm not super thrilled about that.
Typically, I'll change my breathing pattern to longer and deeper breaths, but I'm observing what happens to the physical sensation I was noticing earlier. And hopefully, now more firmly in my rational brain, I ask myself the important question: am I feeling fear because I'm in real danger, or am I feeling fear because it is challenging to be clinging to the side of a snowy mountain, or rappelling down a cliff face, or being out alone in the woods? If I evaluate that I am in real danger, I need to mitigate that danger, say by placing some gear to keep me attached to the wall, or potentially needing to get the heck out of there, say if weather is moving in. If I'm merely uncomfortable, I reframe my thinking to something like, isn't it great that I'm skilled enough and capable enough to get myself into such a challenging situation? I frame the challenge as a positive rather than the negative fear. There's a lot more we can all learn about managing fear, but here's some of the starting points. I hope you find these techniques to be effective for you and your loved ones. Thanks for coming to the end of this video. Please hit that like button, ring that bell, and subscribe, and check out our website at shortguysbetaworks.com to find gear lists, all of our videos, and additional thoughts and information. Have there been times when you've been really afraid out in the wild? Let's see some of those scary stories in the comments section. We'll see you next week, and keep on getting more out of that big outside.